I'm Jess Burns with headlines for FSRN. Today, the government of Syria sent out a mass text message nationwide aimed at rebel groups saying, "Game over." The message follows reports from the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights that 300 people died yesterday. The reports cannot be independently verified. The number of people fleeing the country continues to grow, according to the UN Refugee Commission. It estimates there will be as many as 700,000 refugees by the end of the year. In response, the agency has increased its target for international humanitarian aid to nearly $490 million. Currently, the UN efforts are only 29% funded. The Indian Supreme Court today issued a warning to the government that if safety measures are not in place, it will shut down a new nuclear power plant. Opposition to the Kudankulam plant, located at the southern tip of the country, erupted after the Fukushima disaster. FSRN's Shurya Niazi reports.
The High Court warned the government it will stop the loading of nuclear fuel into the Kudankulam plant if they discover inadequate safety measures. The court said that the government must ensure protection of the environmental as well as local communities. Anti-nuclear activists and local villagers have been protesting the plant. One opponent petitioned the court arguing the facility does not meet new safety recommendations proposed by the Nuclear Regulatory Agency. Others worry about how a leak would affect fishing, a major industry on the southern coast. This week, residents demonstrated in village graveyards, and in another protest, hundreds of others buried themselves neck deep on the beach. Shurya Niazi, FSRN, India.
Russian police have the right to use force against protesters at mass demonstrations, but people do not have the right to resist. That was the ruling of Russia's top court today. FSRN's Yekaterina Danilova reports from St. Petersburg.
Previously, the Supreme Court said people have the right to defend themselves against police force. But today, the court revoked the right, even in cases of illegal use of force. Opposition activists have been using the provision as part of their defense in court. Vyacheslav Plakhatnyuk is a political lawyer. He thinks the Supreme Court decision won't bring about any major changes.
When there were cases where police received injuries, people were prosecuted anyway. I don't know many cases when activists managed to prove that it was necessary self-defense, especially for rallies and demonstrations. The courts didn't agree there was a self-defense issue.
The court said the decision is temporary and it will review the policy again in the future. The move comes amid an ongoing crackdown on opposition political activities. Yekaterina Danilova, FSRN, Russia.
In a follow-up to a story FSRN covered last week, a federal grand jury in Seattle found Portland activist Matt Duran in contempt of court Wednesday after he refused to answer questions during a hearing. Police raided Duran's home looking for evidence relating to property destruction during a May Day protest in Seattle. He's now facing an 18-month prison sentence at a federal facility. For FSRN, Mark Taylor-Canfield reports.
The grand jury served subpoenas to Matt Duran and 3 other political activists in Portland, Olympia, and Seattle as part of U.S. Attorney Jenny Durkin's investigation. Activists, including those called before the grand jury, say the inquiry isn't just about property damage to the Seattle Federal Courthouse, but an investigation of the anarchist movement in Oregon and Washington. The National Lawyers Guild says the grand jury investigation and raids on the homes of political activists violate the First Amendment. According to witnesses, law enforcement was seeking anti-government political literature during the raids. In a statement released earlier this month, Duran said, "I will do everything I can to resist the grand jury." Mark Taylor-Canfield, Free Speech Radio News, Seattle.
A California court struck down most of the city of Arcata's anti-panhandling ordinance this week. It ruled the city's legitimate interest in controlling traffic and preventing unwanted communication did not justify the ordinance's restriction on freedom of speech. FSRN's Eric Black reports.
The ruling lifts prohibitions against panhandling on or near a pedestrian footbridge and within 20 feet of a retail outlet, intersection, or parking structure. The 2010 ordinance stated that panhandling in those locations causes congestion and threatens the economic vitality of the city by driving away shoppers. But in his ruling, Judge Dale Reinholdson wrote, quote, "Arcata may not restrict solicitation merely because it makes people uncomfortable. The plaintiff in the lawsuit, Richard Salzman, agreed.
My feeling is that if you're going to stand for civil rights, if you're going to stand for civil liberties, if you're going to stand for free speech, you have to be willing to protect everyone's speech, including people you may disagree with or even people you find annoying.
The court upheld restrictions on panhandling within 20 feet of an outdoor ATM and on public transportation. The lawsuit did not challenge Arcata's prohibitions against use of abusive language, unwanted physical contact, or intentional disruption of traffic while panhandling. The plaintiff's attorney said he does not expect the city to appeal the ruling. Eric Black, FSRN, Arcata, California.
And that's headlines for FSRN from Eugene, Oregon. I'm Jess Burns.